Hey, I'm Reagan Ram with Orpheus Audio Academy, helping you make better music and grow your fan base online. And so here we are inside of Logic. All right, so let's break down what I did. We'll start here with the drums. We'll just see the drums here. I pretty much kept it the same as what Kate Bush did. Obviously the tone is different, but the same pattern, which is actually the same pattern all the way through, which is pretty simple. And actually just backing up a bit, let's just talk about the structure. I thought this song had a very interesting structure, as you don't really have any section repeat, right? You have the first verse here, which is shorter than the second verse. The second verse is longer. You have the first pre-chorus, which is also shorter than the second pre-chorus. You have the first chorus, which is shorter than the second chorus. Then you have a third pre-chorus, so I guess that's the same. That's really the only part that repeats here. It's the same as the second pre-chorus, and you have a little bridge section. Then you kind of have a third verse section, but it's almost like a part bridge itself, because it's like not like the other verses. And then you have the final chorus, which is the longest chorus and has a bunch of other stuff going on. So really interesting, because it's a very simple song on the surface, because you got the same drums going all the way through. The chords are not that complex. There's only like 3 chords during the choruses, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right. So it's pretty simple, like instrumentally, but she makes up for that simplicity with complexity in the melody, the vocals, and then also the song structure, which is really interesting. And it's just nice to see, like, especially working on older songs, there's a lot more creativity than you have today. Music today can be very formulaic, so this can be a good idea for you, is just to go back, look at the structure and instrumentation and just arrangement of older songs to get ideas for your music going forward to make things sound more interesting and unique. So these are the drums here. We'll just play this. Basically a synthwave beat here, which is actually what she has in the song. Just the kick and the snare hitting, and then she has these toms in here, which is interesting. And I'm just using the Lin drum here in Logic, as well as this taiko drum here in Logic. And I got those panned slightly. Now, if you yourself are wanting to create more synthwave or 80s style music, I actually have a free sample pack that you can grab in the description below. It mostly contains drum samples that you can use to create authentic sounding 80s or synthwave music. A couple things I did add was I just added in this gong here from this Asian kit. And then I started adding some tom fills as well. And I created the tom fills using UJam's Vice, which is a really awesome drum plugin if you are looking to create synthwave or 80s style drums. So those are the drums. Then we got the bass here. So pretty typical synthwave style bass. By the way, all the synths I used in this song I used creating Syntronic 2. And I did a full review on Syntronic 2. If you want to check that out, it's linked in the description below. Chords. I used some kind of like synth piano in Syntronic for that. And then I also just layered it with some strings. Because the actual original patch that Kate Bush is using is from a Fairlight. An actual instrument that Kate Bush used to create most of the sounds in her song was the Fairlight CMI, and kind of her main sounds for her chords and also that lead sound are from the same patch, I believe, which is the like cello patch. Doesn't sound like a cello because that's what sampling was like back in the 80s. But since, to kind of pay homage, I guess, to a stringed instrument that she was kind of using, I just layered in some strings here. Can't really hear them at all in the mix, but it just kind of adds a little extra attack, I felt like, to the chords. Then we have the rhythm section here, where it's mainly just these kind of airy strings. And I also added in an arpeggiator. And I just used the tremolo effect in Logic to have it bounce back and forth left and right, just to kind of add more of a synthwave feel to it. That was also created using Syntronic 2. Then I got leads here. Mostly just a big kind of airy synth. And then I also layered it on the outro with this outro lead, which I think has the same sound, the same instrument. I just put some crazy effects on it. I used UJam's Dynamo and UJam's Flux. And I've reviewed both of those plugins previously. I'll link to those in the description as well. And those just really help you create just really interesting sounds, as you'll hear here. So yeah, I just took the original lead synth and just bumped it up an octave, and then yeah, added those two modulation effects to it. Then we have some sound effects. Not much to write home about here, just some interesting sound effects here. You use this Winds of Mortar effect from Syntronic 2, which is pretty cool. Had some panning automation on it. I got this riser too, which was from Syntronic 2. And I just had some kind of weird effect here. Some kind of like sci-fi sound effect that I have. And then this impact. Just to kind of further distinguish the sections because they were so similar in instrumentation between the verse and the chorus. Then I have the background vocals here, so I have these oohs. I guess they're more like yos than oohs, but you can see them here. Pretty big layer. That's me and my wife, and so we just sang it multiple times and then pans left and right. And then I also created some artificial harmonies, like with deep here. I just took what I sang and dropped it down. I don't even know how much, several steps. Yeah, yeah, yo. Yeah, yeah, yo. Yeah, yeah, yo. So yeah, I just dropped it down and then decreased the formant to try to make it sound a little bit more realistic. And also just increased by an octave. Yeah, yeah, yo. Yeah, yeah, yo. Yeah, so same thing, just increased, just dragged all the pitches up an octave and then increased the formant. And then for my wife, Haley, I left her vocals pretty much the same. I did give her another one artificial harmony here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sounds kind of fake on its own, but altogether, I thought it sounded pretty darn good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty cool. And then we had some background vocals here. Deal I'm making. Which sound really nice when layered with the lead vocals. Do you want to know that it doesn't hurt me? Do you want to hear about the deal I'm making? You. Sweet. And then they're very prominent during the bridge over here. You won't be unhappy. Oh, come on, baby. Oh, come on, darling. Let me steal this moment from you now. Oh, come on, angel. Come on, darling. Let's exchange the experience. Oh. pretty haunting and awesome. So that's it for the arrangement. Now mixing wise, let's just check out what I did here. So mix bus, I always start with the mix bus when I mix a song. So let's just have everything playing here. Let's just grab the chorus here or something. Last chorus. Well, I'm gonna run into system overload problems, aren't I? So this is with so first you're gonna hear the song with no effects on the outro, or no effects on the mix bus, except a limiter just so it stays the same volume with and without. So you're not being fooled by a volume increase or decrease. So this is it without any effects on the mix bus.
I make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill, with no problems. Say if I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our.
So as you can probably hear, huge difference. That's why I like to start with the mix bus as well, because you're able to make a lot of progress quickly by trying to get your song to sound professional, as good as possible, just with the mix bus alone, and then using that to guide your decisions farther down the road. So started out with just some linear phase EQ. Just the reason why I'm using a linear phase here is it's not going to be throwing off the phase of anything. It's not actually changing the tonality at all. It's not adding any other harmonics or anything like that. It's just strict, boosting or cutting the exact frequencies that I am working on here. And then to guide myself throughout this, I used tonal balance control here by Isotope, just to make sure that I was kind of in the right frequency ranges for the type of music I was going for. I was going for a pop style song. And so this kind of tells you what the frequency content should be for the kind of 4 major ranges if you're making a pop song. And so I found that on its own, things were a little heavy, a little muddy in the low mids. So I brought those down, brought down the low lows a bit. I completely rolled off the low end because you don't really need that, anything below like 30 Hertz. And gave a slight boost at about 10K. And that's it. So very subtle, but definitely makes a difference. You probably won't even be able to hear it if I did before and after. So let's just have these all turned off and we'll see.
I make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places.
You definitely can still hear that the high end there being brought out, being more crystallized. Then I put on T-Rack's Dynamo by IK Multimedia. This is really nice, just to add some basically saturation, some tube saturation. I don't think this is even doing much compressing. We'll see. So without and then with it in.
I make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill, with no.
Very subtle. It's doing a tiny amount of compression, but this input nod, you crank that up and it's going to give a lot of saturation, as this is an emulation of the Manley Slam compressor limiter. Now I use this a lot when I was working in a commercial recording studio as a student, as we had a physical Manley Slam, and it just sounded really great on vocals and a lot of different instruments. So I just threw this on the whole thing, just to add some of that nice tube warmth. Then I have the bus compressor by IK Multimedia. So this emulates the SSL 4000 console bus compressor. So this just kind of helps glue everything together. So we'll listen to this as well before and after.
I make a deal with God, and I get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill.
So again, very subtle, but it's adding a little bit of compression, just helping to glue things together. And so you're kind of seeing a trend here that every plugin I'm adding, you almost on its own can't really hear what it's doing, but it's adding just enough subtleties that when you add these all together, it makes a big difference. Then I have this NLS bus by Wave, so a nonlinear summer. So this is kind of also just meant to emulate the desk of a mixing console, the SSL mixing console. And so then this is again just to kind of add some realistic saturation, because if you were mixing in a physical recording studio, you would have this go through a console. So I'm just kind of adding in some drive here, then compensating with the trim. So that's an important thing too whenever you are adding plugins in general, but especially on the mix bus. If you're doing anything that's increasing the volume, you want to compensate and reduce the output so you're not actually adding volume and tricking yourself. So we'll hear this now.
I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill, with no problem.
So again, very slow, but we're getting some of that saturation. And I also have a tape here by IK Multimedia, the Tape Machine 99, to add some tape saturation to get that, again, authentic 80s sound.
I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill, with no problem.
So another effect of saturation is it actually subtly compresses as well. It's not just adding harmonics, but also some subtle compression. So you can see the kind of combined effect of all this saturation and compression is everything is getting more glued together and it feels more tight. And finally, this is a big one. I added, this is kind of cheating, but I added the one plugin by IK Multimedia. This is kind of meant to be an all-in-one mastering plugin, but I'm not actually using this for mastering purposes, so I'm not adding any compression or volume increases, but I'm just adding some basically EQ here. I think these actually might be our harmonic enhancers. I'm not sure. Increasing the width here, bringing out some of the transients, adding in some more saturation with this analog knob here, and also some bass punch. So this is kind of just a sound better plugin, and so you can hear what this sounds like.
I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places, and be running up that road, be running up that hill, with no problems.
So you can hear that everything just brings everything forward, adds more width and depth. It's pretty awesome. It sounds really good here. But it doesn't, I think it did actually end up increasing the volume a tad as well. So that might be part of what you're hearing. But not enough that it didn't like remove all the headroom. Is there still enough headroom for limiting? So that's the mix bus. And then then when I mix, I go to each of these individual buses. So you can see I have everything kind of grouped here. So I have a drum bus here. I'm not going to go through all these, otherwise this will be like an hour-long video, unless this is the kind of content you're interested in. If you want me to create like hour-long videos breaking down mixes, I can do that. Just let me know in the comments below. But here I just added some DBX compression, very, very subtle compression to the drums. Also some tape saturation to the drums. Yeah, using another IK plugin. And then I use this parallel aggressor by BB Audio to add some parallel compression and saturation. So that kind of brings the drums all together. We'll hear that real quick. So it just kind of tightens the drums up and glues them together. For the basses here, I used two different basses. I found this was really helpful for reducing mud from your bass, but still getting a wide bass. So I have one bass here, which is this one, which I'm actually cutting out most of the low end here. I'm just using it for kind of the highs. And then I'm also adding a chorus plugin on it, the Tal Chorus LX, which is actually a free plugin. It's one of my favorite free plugins. And it just adds a lot of width to the bass. So we'll hear that now. Just night and day difference. But if you add chorus to like the lows of your bass, then it can actually get kind of muddy and indistinct. You're missing some of that really punchiness of the bass. So I created another bass track here. It's very similar in sound, but in this case, I am cutting off the highs, as you can see, and just using it for the lows, and I'm keeping it mono, not adding any stereo width. So we'll hear what that sounds like. And together. It's pretty sweet, just drum and bass there. Chords, not much to write home about, just added some subtle compression. And then I'm also just using EQ to give everything a space that's kind of in a focus here. So I cut out the lows and just about everything except for like the kick drum and the bass. Here I'm having the chords kind of sit right in the middle here. I'm cutting out some of the high highs there. And then I have this rhythm section, which is my ARP and my strings. I'm cutting out where the vocals sit so they're not clashing with the vocals because there was some high frequency content here. And I'm cutting out even more of the lows here. So it's kind of, again, giving that a space. We got the leads doing the same thing here. And yeah, in the outro, you can see the finisher Flux is actually doing a lot here. So let's just hear that real quick. So that's pretty cool. Add some like sweeping sounding delay in there. So this is a really awesome tool if you want to just instantly like create a remix or add really interesting sounds and make, you know, boring sounds sound interesting. That's what this does. Again, I have a full review of this that you can check out in the description below. And then I think what basically the next step, main thing here are the vocals here. So for these background vocals here, I like to use the CLA vocals here to kind of glue everything together and give everything a distinct sound. So add some compression, a little bit of EQ, some reverb, and then some widening to add some width to everything here. And then the individual tracks, I basically just use the Greg Wells Voice Centric. This is another really awesome plugin to add some compression, doubling, delay, and reverb to the individual tracks. So each track on its own has some reverb, and then I'm adding some reverb to all of them, the same reverb to all of them, as well as the CLA, so they kind of feel like they fit together. And I'm also using some vocal bender, so you can hear that on the deep here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yo. Yeah, yeah, yo.
So just add some more deepness there to the voice. And then I'm also using that on the harmony here for Haley, the artificial harmony I made here. Different preset here, age modifier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cuts without.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's with it in. So it just kind of makes it sound a little bit younger and it's a little higher pitched, just to add a different texture. And then for the lead vocals, did quite a bit here, so we can see all the different effects here. So we'll just hear what these sound like without any effects and with them in.
If I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places, be running up that road.
So you can hear those effects really bring the vocals forward there. So first off, there's quite a bit of dynamics in these vocals, and that's just typical with lead vocals. So I'm using Vocal Writer here by Waves, and so you can see what this does. As things get too loud, it's going to turn them down, or if they get too quiet, it's going to turn them up automatically, so I don't have to go in and draw in all that automation manually.
If I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places, be running up that road, be running up that hill, be running up that building.
So it's mostly increasing because I felt that the vocals were a little quiet, so I ended up being brought up quite a bit. So that's the Vocal Writer. Then I added some EQ here using the VEQ3 by Waves. This is really great vintage sounding EQ.
If I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places.
Add some nice high-end sheen. And then again, I'm using the Dynamo as well to add some subtle compression and saturation.
If I only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places. Be running up that road, be running up that hill.
And I've got a de-esser in, and then again, the Greg Wells voice-centric. And then I've got even more here. So I've got this comped vocal track. So we took like 3 or 4 takes, and then I took the best sections of each take to make one comped vocal. Then starting with the second chorus and moving on into the third chorus, I'm actually just using some more of those takes to create a doubled up vocals with one panned all the way left, one panned all the way right, just to make a little bit of a wider vocal sound, just to change things up, make things sound a little different in the second half there, more powerful. And so for these, again, I just have more vintage EQ on the individual comped track here, just some sibilance control here, so more de-essing. And then I have a serial compression system here that I like to use. I did a full tutorial on how to create upfront vocals using serial compression, so you can check that out in the description as well. I'm not going to break that down here, but I used the black 76 first, and then I used the white 2A here by IK Multimedia. And I did the same thing with all the other vocals using that same serial compression format. So from there, I did a little bit of subtle tweaking on individual tracks, but I won't dive into that in this video. Otherwise, again, it will be too long. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you want me to do more mixing breakdowns, just let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this track and you'd like to download it for free, you can do so by going to AndromedaCoastMusic.com/runningupthathill, and I'll also have a link to it below so you can download this song for free. Also, if you like creating 80s and synthwave music, be sure to check out my playlist on the screen right now, which includes a bunch of tutorials on how to create synthwave music. All right, have a great day and keep creating.